even with the lyrics changing a little bit
I'm
there.
sorry about that. I was feeling it,
So this afternoon at 4:30, I'm doing an outdoor wedding, and there's one more little rain cell coming down the coast. So I talked to the bride last night and asked her what she'd planned to do, and she said nothing. They make no allowances at this particular place for shelter. So God will rain its blessings upon us in no uncertain terms. So, in his book, How to Be Compassionate, the Dalai Lama says, the greatest power comes from compassion in your heart. The power to gradually create harmony and peace throughout the world. Simple task, right? And sometimes difficult when we're in the throes of our own misery. The Dalai Lama said that when the Chinese government, the fellow who wrote the foreword said that when the Chinese government finds out that the Dalai Lama has been invited to speak in a specific country, they immediately file an objection. And oftentimes the country does find a way to make his visit inconvenient or downplays the visit. And so the question was asked, what do they fear? That was the question. And the Chinese communists offered to negotiate with the Dalai Lama, but he was not allowed at any time to discuss the Tibetan independence. He has not actually raised that topic since 1978, but they still raise all sorts of conditions. And again, the fellow who wrote the foreword asked the question, what do they fear? What do they fear? And according to the Dalai Lama, fear shows up when we are overly attached to the current flow of life. When we're overly attached, it's that ego thing that we have as to how it's supposed to look, when it's supposed to show up, who's supposed to be involved. That's the ego that needs to have all that information. And even if that flow of life is uncomfortable, we kind of have this sense that it's going to last forever. It's kind of the uncomfortable comfort, if you will. And sometimes we'd rather stay in that than be forced to make any kind of change in our lives. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. Even in the physical body, there's sort of this built-in obsolescence, especially if we don't take the time to keep our bodies in fit and good condition. And I used to think a certain way about my life. I used to think it was going to be this way forever. And when I came to this teaching, I discovered that there was a law of cause and effect, that I was cause to my own effect. And I know I say that a lot on Sunday morning, but until we really get that message, we don't affect change in our lives in a significant way. In order for my life to change, I had to change my thinking. And what I believed to be the gospel truth about my situation, my upbringing, my unskilled parents, and I had to release the attachment. Well, what was I afraid of? Well, I was kind of afraid of losing my identity, I think, because my whole identity was wrapped up in that old story. And that old identity revolved around the disharmony and the discomfort I attached to my early upbringing. Well, I came to the realization that everything that I've ever been, done, or said got me to where I am today. Not bad. Not too bad. I'm still alive. I have a good life. Everything's going pretty decently. Ernest Holmes, like the Dalai Lama, believed in the possibility of a harmonious existence. And he believed that if enough people could get together, that the consciousness of even one person could change the consciousness of an entire room, or an entire community, or the entire world. And he believed in the possibility of a peaceful coexistence with every race, creed, and color in the entire world. And yet some of us have difficulty in seeing the God essence in our siblings, our parents, our children. So how is that possibility going to show up for us on a global level when we can't manage it within the immediate family of origin? This past week, the Oprah show has been doing Well, she's been doing it for probably the whole season, but this past week was really significant to me. She's been doing a retrospective on the last 25 years because she's winding down to the last Oprah Winfrey show. And last week, one of the shows had to do with people who were there for makeovers. And they wanted to show the biggest, the most, the hugest change in certain people. New clothes, new hair, new makeup, the whole 9 yards. And most of the people who came to the Oprah show for a makeover came at the insistence of other people. I want you to look different, so I'm calling Oprah to get you on there to change your look so I feel better about you. I mean, the message was so loud and clear to me. It was fascinating to see how happy everyone in the audience and the one who asked for the makeover was when this person comes out for the big reveal, right? And some of them were stunning. They were just stunning. And some of them, she went back in retrospect and got some of the people that had had these makeovers to come back. And some of them reverted to form immediately after leaving the Oprah Winfrey show. Oh my God, one guy looked like he'd just come down off the mountain where he'd been in hibernation for 12 years or something. When we do things or change things in life because it makes someone else happy, we are sort of out of integrity. Not sort of, we are out of integrity with ourselves. Years ago, when I was first married, I stopped smoking for 15 months. Because Bill wanted me to quit smoking. But I secretly began smoking again after a business trip to Philadelphia. And you know what? It took me 20 years to stop smoking after that. But when I did, it was by my own choice. It wasn't because somebody else wanted me to quit smoking. I wasn't doing it because it pleased somebody else. I did it because it pleased me. And when we choose to make changes in our lives because it pleases us, there's a shift in consciousness that takes place. And this shift ends up being a permanent part of our lives rather than something that we do just for the moment. It becomes one of those moments in eternity, as Joseph Campbell would say. The Dalai Lama said that contentment is the key. If we're content with regard to material things, we are truly rich. Without contentment, he said, even if you're a billionaire, you will not have happiness. You will always feel hungry for more and more and more, making you not rich, but poor. If you seek contentment externally, it will never come. Your desire will never be fulfilled. And it's not just about money, but it's about all areas of our lives. And in the Bible, the beatitude that says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, the question for that then becomes, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm going to do an entire series on the beatitudes during the summertime because you know, I heard them differently growing up than what I heard as a New Thought interpretation by Charles Roth, who is a unity minister. The meaning of the word poor in Greek means one who has nothing and is completely empty. Was Jesus saying that the economically poor are blessed? Well, that was what I was led to believe in the Catholic Church, you know, that you needed to give money to the church at a great sacrifice. Whether you could put food on the table didn't matter, but it was important for you to give to the church until it hurt, I guess, is what it was supposed to be. But it does not mean that we're economically poor. It means that there is no spirituality in poverty. Poverty itself is not blessed, according to what I was reading. Because the poor can be as arrogant and as ungodly and as lost as the rich. So what does it mean really to be poor in spirit? It means that the poor are those who realize that they can never achieve salvation on their own and instead put their complete faith and trust in God. That's what it means. And that's what we're here to do. Put our complete faith and trust in God. The poor in spirit are those who are not self-assertive, self-reliant, self-confident, or self-sufficient. And we are here to teach self-sufficiency, self-reliance, independence, self-assertiveness. We are here to, this teaching is about empowering people and about creating the space where you can walk out of here on a Sunday morning and feel a sense of worth about yourself. I came to this teaching poor in spirit. I truly did. My life was not working and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought that, if I could just get the answer as to how to fix my life, because I really didn't know that my thinking was a part of the problem. Not that I was the problem, it was my thinking that was part of the problem. If you would just be nicer, if my mother loved me more, if I had more money, if I were thinner, you can add your own. Don't tell me what they are because I don't need any new ones. But I mean, all of those things, if only. When, those kinds of things. Someone once said, the poor in spirit are not baptized in the waters of self-esteem. Oh my God, bite your bullet on that one. They do not boast in their God-given characteristics such as their birth, their family, their nationality, their education, their physical looks, their race, their wealth, or their culture. None of that matters. The poor in spirit are those who are conscious of their mistakes, and yet don't let their mistakes rule their lives and what's wrong in their lives. There's really, the poor in spirit focus their attention on those things, and they know some way, somehow in their hearts that they're completely unworthy of the grace that the most holy and loving God pours down upon them. Thank you, Joel Osteen. The thing is when we are poor in spirit, all of that stuff that we've grown up with, it just gets loaded on until, our identity is so convoluted and confused. So poor in spirit means that we come to God conscious of our mistakes and our shortcomings, not allowing them to rule our current existence, but for us to have a relationship with God that is predicated on self-sufficiency, independence, self-reliance, and that we know that the God of our understanding in this philosophy is a generous and loving God. It means that we feel sometimes in this poor in spirit thing that we're totally unqualified to commune with and have a relationship with God, and that we don't deserve the gifts of God that God is trying to bestow upon us. But this is not true. It's not true. The poor in spirit do not realize that they have, that every asset that they have is God ordained. And maybe you came here believing this to be your truth, that you were poor in spirit, that you didn't have a relationship with God, and some cute little round lady stands up before you on a Sunday morning and says, I love you. You are worthy. You do have value. You are a precious, sweet being, and God wants to shower its blessings upon you. Now you've got this dichotomy going. On the one hand, there's still that idea that we're unworthy, and on the other hand, somebody's telling us that we are worthy. The question is, how do I do that? How do I begin to feel worthy? How do I finally get that I am worthy? How do I feel that value? And how do I finally understand that I am that precious, sweet being? Well, I never got it because my teachers told me. That was their perception of me. I never got it because I read it in a book. I never got it because I attended the definitive workshop. I got it when I got it intrinsically and not a moment before. I got it when the awareness came from the inside out, not trying to drag something from outside in, but knowing from the inside out. Was there a blaze of flashing light? No blazes, although that would have been nice every once in a while just for a pick-me-up. It came in kind of little teeny small awarenesses like angels' feet. One small idea at a time. It came when I realized that I hadn't committed thought crimes against my husband for 2 or 3 days. Then it became 2 or 3 weeks. I got it when prayer and meditation became a daily practice for me. When I began to, that began to be the most important thing to start my day. I got it when I realized that you don't have to be any different in order for me to love you. I just love you exactly the way you are. One of the guests on the Oprah Winfrey Show, when in the retrospective, and I loved it because Oprah and Maya Angelou were having a sleepover together. They were in bed. And Maya Angelou says, we do better when we know better. We do better when we know better. And I would add, not a moment before. Not a moment before. Every one of us has made mistakes, but we did the best we could with what we had at our disposal. And in those times, we were sort of in desperate need of God's grace and righteousness. But it was always there waiting for our recognition of it. God never went anywhere. You know, in my own head, I used to take trips. Not those kind of 60s trips, but you know what I mean. I used to go off someplace and imagine that life would be different. And you know, it's exactly the way I imagined it. It is. It is exactly today the way that I imagined it would be. One of my favorite prolific authors, unknown, has said this: yesterday I knew nothing. Today I know that. Isn't that a whole Sunday talk right there in a nutshell? Every day is an adventure in spirit. There's more wanting to be revealed by our unique spiritual journeys. Each one of us, whatever the journey is that we're having, it's unique. It's unique to each one of us. We can compare notes, but we're traveling, you know, perhaps the same road, but we have a different perspective in the 5 sensory level. What caused me to be afraid yesterday to where I'm not afraid today? For me, it was I felt alone in this big, scary, and often ugly world. I felt abandoned by God. But as I've said before on Sunday, God never abandoned me. I was the one who abandoned God. I believed God had abandoned me. Today I know that I'm never alone. Today I know that there's a law of mind that works on my behalf and works in the negative every bit as well as it does in the positive. And we can create, as Ernest Holmes, a contagion of good in our lives. We can start an epidemic of good in our lives just by making that declaration of truth. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for ours is the kingdom of heaven, right here on earth. Right here on earth. Today, I choose to see the best in everyone in my life. And sometimes it's more difficult than others. Have you noticed that? But I know that by declaring it to be true, that contagion takes on a life of its own and becomes the truth. And I do know today that people are inherently good. They are. They are good. Sometimes they get kind of mixed up a little bit. So let's encourage that thought process that people are inherently good. Let's attach our vote of confidence to the possibility of this being the way of life and the way things are for each one of us. And let's add our yes vote to having life and having it more abundantly. In the movie Bucket List, probably on my top 5 favorite movies of all times, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman are sitting on the top of some pyramid in Egypt, right? Have you ever, anybody here not seen the movie? Oh, please rent it. Please rent it. It'll enrich your life. Anyway, they're looking out over this expansive desert, and Morgan Freeman, who is self-educated, Jack Nicholson is degree educated, higher education, the whole 9 yards. But Morgan Freeman is one of the smartest people, and actually much more street smart than Jack Nicholson is in the movie. And as they're sitting there on top of this pyramid, Morgan Freeman's character said that the ancient Egyptians have a story about when their souls get to the gates of heaven, that there were 2 questions that they would be asked. And the answers determined whether or not they would be allowed to enter the pearly gates. The two questions are this, and I give them to you to ponder this morning. The first one is, have you found joy in your life? And the second question is, have you brought joy to others? That's all you need to ask today. These are good questions. I'll let you think about them this week. And like the Dalai Lama said, we do have the power to gradually create harmony and peace throughout the world, asking the right questions and knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please? And so it is this morning that I know, as I speak this truth for each and every one of us, that in my life, it's the questions, being in the question, always in the question. At the end of the day, have I brought joy to the life of anyone else today? And if that can be answered unequivocally yes, then I know that I have lived my life and lived it abundantly. Because I know, in effect today, that my life is predicated on the joy that I feel. And so I know this for each and every one of us, that at the core of who we are is joy. And this creates that absolute sense of self-reliance, independence, self-confidence that we have as we go out into our world. And we understand that we are blessed by being poor in spirit, because we know that there is something waiting and ready to be filled up and overflowing, pressed down, knowing that God is in the mix in our lives when there is joy. And so today and every day, as I awake from sleep, I create the space in my life for just a couple of minutes to determine the path that I'm about to take for this day. That I open up to the possibility of a joy-filled day. And I create it by simply going out into my world and being joy. Being the essence of joy. It is contagious. And I know that collectively this consciousness in this room can create that contagion, beginning right here and right now. That we are joy-filled beings. And that I know more than I've ever known before that it is true what Jesus said, that I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Let's say that together. I am the light of the world. And in that knowing, I take that with me as the consciousness that comes before me in all things. That I am aware of that sweet, precious presence of every person in my life. And no matter how that person may be acting out in a disagreeable way or a way that is inconsistent with that person's perfection, I know that it is a temporary aberration. I know that I joyfully, creatively express in a way today that fulfills me. That when I say that I feel good, I am good. And when my relationships are right and perfect, I know that all is right in my world. And when I know unequivocally that God pours its blessings upon me, I know that money is no object and success is guaranteed in all my endeavors. And so I know this today for each and every one of us. I just simply allow it to be the truth, the greater truth. I am joy. I have asked the question, and I already know the answer, because the answer is always in the question.
This day I woke with a passion in my heart, a feeling of longing, a thirst so strong. I want to be better, an opening for God. Make me stronger. My prayer today is for courage to be what the Holy intends for me. I want to be better, an opening for God. Make me stronger. I am stronger.
Is. Would you welcome Darius again for his second song?
Thank you, Dr. Maureen.